So it's like the film is 300% right now as for like New York right now deciding to like quit her like rabbit costume job like basically soon after like receiving like this PTM card like I was like it, right now like New York taking the decision to like even quit her job might and present might have been like the decision that New York might have made on like the very next day like this might be like something that might have happened like the very next day of like the previous and it might have been like the very previous night that New York might have got this game card of the new member so definitely my preparation for like new events straight away resigning like the job over that studying card like I'm different that it will precisely due to like I'm wondering if it might be due to like me almost likely knowing what like the skill game actually is and like the ranges of like skill game like you're mostly knowing that. So like I'm wondering like this might totally have like my person thinks that like this might have total connection to like basically New that basically carefully looking at like Sangyeon in Sangyeong, I was like walking up the stairs and like near of like walking down the stairs and saw Sangyeong walking up the stairs of like that building where like of that water like to like when Sangyeong had gone there to like talk about like to get seek herself to like basically get your like mother parents back and everything. So like I was back then like for New York to like carefully stare or like look at like Sangyeong on seeing Sangyeong's self like but to be potentially because of that New York most likely knowing your Stephanie temperature. So like I was remembering right now that like New York might have been a PM worker working as like a PM worker in like the 2020 Squid Games is like Nima Game, which like Sanjon was in New York might have been like working as like a Squid Game worker. Was like Nima So New York might have been working as like the lowest amount Squid Game worker. Maybe in like the like sample market that you know the so definitely like Neo might not only see in like San John's like the trick in like the 2020s to game definitely I would say so like Neo might know even in the 50% like Neo might have okay at that point by time and Neo had seen like San John climbing up the stairs of that building of that water guy like other than like Neo might have straight away recognized San John as like so the winner of like the 2020s to game it's the Neo 300 so definitely, this might be the better reason. Like, most likely, you feel like you're already knowing that what the Squid Game is like, and basically about like the reward money of its game being actually real. Like, all this, like, because of like you already knowing this might be the better reason for you right now straight away. Decide, taking the decision to like resign from some job right now. It's definitely not the even while in your right now is like a situation where like people should like probably struggling to like survive. Like, yet like not to like straight away to sign over just the team that could gain like it was especially because of like her knowing what like Squid is and what it's like just the human element. So like I'm looking like my perspective is especially that like New York might have only what that's like a Squid Game World Cup only in like the 2020 Squid Games alone, especially when so and you all might have done that solely for her daughter. So some people like New York might have been desperate to like find her daughter. Like New York might have like took up the job as like a game of during like the 2020 Squid Game. Might have been what might have happened is that New York very much. So like after like getting that going through that first shock of like the job of like being like a Squid Game or like in like the this game itself like I was looking like towards the end of like the this weekend itself like New York might have not the other side of New York the rendition side. And then like older than New York might have not like quit that studio worker job in between might have been solely due to like the role and basically the play might have been like the rules for like this game workers that they they should like quit in between their job before like that year like Squid Game and because if they do like they might be eliminated as well. It's also like a so like that there might have been such a role as well. It's definitely training. So like I'm looking that might be like sort of an out of fear that like you might have completed her job as like a full game worker for like the entirety of like the 20 weeks game and might have back then seen like Sanjong within the 20 games definitely on the pressure. But like after that year's good game itself, like Amber Spring might have straight away given her resignation and might have quit her game on the job. Then since that time, especially when we played and there might have been also like strict conditions that from like from man to Neo, from to like Neo that basically as part of like the role for also game out of that basically after if that any of them even kids like the Squid Game that basically they have to like kids like their job as like a game out of they have to like remain silent about like the Squid Games uh once they get back from the, back get back to the home, like get back to their personal life and to their home and everything. Especially when we train the show. So if they break and like there might have been that threat that if they break that rule and talk about like the students to like anyone and basically then like I'm going to bring like the actual like the frontman or like the other studio workers or like the people behind like studio would be like eliminating them even in the real life and along the lines of like a threat kind of like a rule that might have been so, like that you all might have not talked about like this video. And you all might have been traumatized from like as through some job as like a student what they were related to this video, but like still you all might have kept that like specific information about the games taking place, like the secrets from everyone even after like you all coming back to her life after like the 2020 game also might have been like the scenario that might have happened. Definitely remember so like my best impressions are like even while Neo like Starly struggling to like survive, like still for Neo to have the money to like pay for that bottle guy to like search for Neo's daughter, 1 year old daughter, like in that other country, like I'm even like that money as like where Neo might have got that money, like it might have not at all been through like her job as like the running costume, definitely like the job with like the running costume, like its salary might simply not be like enough at all for like Neo herself to even survive, and that would be like the reason for like Neo even like living in that in her car as well, especially when the famous. So like it would be like the remaining of money that she might have had after like working as like a studio worker during like the 20 game. It's definitely my personal impression. So and basically like all of like even like the civilian workers who would be like quitting from like their job as like a civilian worker would be like most likely according to like info like the orders of like the frontman would be like carefully observed by like the people working in like the games depending on the framework. So like I'm looking like they might have totally observed and spied on like Neol as well after like leaving like the game leaving her job as like a civilian worker as well. Might have been what might have happened to the so like I'm talking like like when like New like so like I'm saying like those people behind like the studio might have totally felt that this would be like the right time to like basically get New York to like play the studio as like a studio as like a studio candidate. So New York and might be the reason for New York right now getting a studio card. It's a November 3rd. And even more than that, like the actual pro main reason would be like I'm still thinking remember the impression that like the 2024 game would be totally different from like the previous two games because like I'm looking like the 2024 Squid Game would be like a Squid Game for like the experience for like people who have who already knows what the Squid Game is like to or it's definitely not the range. So like I'm talking like among like the Squid Game candidates for like the 2024 Squid Game, I'm looking like there will definitely be along with like Sanjon eventually I'm looking like there will be also like all the Squid Game candidates would be like ex Squid Game workers or like ex Squid Game candidates. And my question the reimbursement like in the 2024 games, like I was wondering like among like the ex game candidates, it would be like Sangyeon Elo that might be like the only Squid Game ex Squid Game candidate that had won like the Squid Game. As for like the remaining ex Squid Game candidates and the question they would all be like ex Squid Game candidates who might have through voting might have escaped from like the Squid Game and left the Squid Game back then in like the past just making up the potential all the way from like 1999 to like 2024, like those ex-good game candidates who might have escaped through voting as well as like a good game, ex-good game workers as well would be like the total collective of them who would want to like enter back into like this good game as like a good game candidate to try their luck on if they would be able to like win the good game and get all that awards money for them to be able to like save themselves and survive might be like the winter scenario that I'm looking where like for like the 2024 school games like I'm looking like the total candidates would be such experience of school game candidates is like the scenario that I'm looking so like it would be a battle between those school game candidates to like for like that reward money. It's like the it's like the major scenario that I'm looking for like the 20 for how like I'm looking like the 2024 school games would be like it's definitely not very so like never story impression that like it wouldn't just be me all alone, but like I'm also putting like Junkie still thinking about the promotion would be like Junkie would be like still Junk was like younger sister. It's definitely my promotion. So like I'm putting like after like Junkie might have gotten married or like maybe like after like I'm also putting like Junkie might have moved out of hope of her mother, especially now frame. So right now it would be like Junho alone that would be like a living with his mother, and Junho definitely might definitely not be married alone, frame. So as for like Junho's younger sister, like it might be like Junhi, and she might have moved out of home. So like I'm looking like here right now might be like living with her boyfriend or like her husband is definitely separate, and that might be like that guy in that subject. Like again soon, like the guy who plays the Rakiji guy might have played the Rakiji game and delivered that again that to definitely know the version. So like I'm looking like and I'm looking like those Jansi as well as like that her boyfriend or husband like those two as well would be like ex-Squid workers or like ex-Squid candidates who might have, through voting, might have escaped from Squid or like they might have been ex-Squid workers who elect the past might have worked as like a Squid worker and they might have been only able to like survive as like a Squid worker. But they might have been only be able to like handle like the Squid work only for like a single year to them before like they might have resigned that might have felt that they might have decided to like basically survive in like the real world rather than like work rather than work as like a civilian worker and like then all might have eventually ended up with like not being able with like ending up with like even more set kind of like a situation definitely not the image. So like I'm thinking like then all might have been like steadily being spied on and monitored by like the people working the people generated the game. So like I'm looking like them all right now would be receiving the cards when that for like the 2024 Squid Game because like I'm looking like it might have been definitely in-house decision because like info might have been like the one that might have came up with the idea solely because like I'm still in the mission that like the 2024 game would be definitely solely would be created in such a way the games would be for like 2024 Indian and the concept of that for like the 2024 Indian would be all done created by Inho and it will be all done solely with the intent to like get rid of Sangyeon. I don't solely because of like Sangyeon like using all of us like reward money to like create trouble for like the people behind like the studios by Sangyeon like having all this like great number of people like search for like the Rakili guy and everything. Like Sanjon using all that reward money to like basically stop the studio and like this whole situation might have created like a discomfort for like the info and like the other behind like studio to like around like the studio in the country. It's definitely was very impression though. Like I'm going to specifically get rid of like Sanjon through like a Squid Game might be like the decision that like Info might have already taken and so like Info might have came up with the idea for like the 2024 Squid Games to be and I'm still remember the impression that like after like Sangyeon might have using his like environment he might have set up like the search to basically capture like the people behind like the Squid Game and like to put an end to like the Squid Game like since then I'm looking like the years after that, like seriously, like Squid Game might have taken place with the incident because like I was looking like because of like solely because of Sanjeev, like they might have not been able to like info might have been become fearful and like might have been in pressure, so like he might have not had the confidence to like conduct Squid Game since that year definitely might have been. So like I'm looking right now in like the presenting 2024, like info might have came up with the plan to like precisely get rid of like Sanjeev and continue his like Squid like as usual, right? Like so like I'm looking from 2025 onwards. So like but when you not to do that, like the idea that informative game of like to get rid of to solely get rid of Nangion might have been like the concept of like the experience to game candidates with like conducting like the game in like 2024 with like experience to game candidates that way to for like Nangion to like not feel and think of spaces that basically objective objective that and that's the game being precisely put up for like 2024 solely targeting Sanjon to get rid of Sanjon by info. This is definitely my personal theory and direction. So like the definitely reimbursement right now with that daughter of like that caricature right now being rushed to like the hospital like with like a near hearing like the name of like, the hospital. So right now, because like Neola well, like the person related or like Neola will be going to that exact hospital, and there will be like right now looking at that hospital will be like the first time Neola will be that and that catcher guy will be talking is like the scenario that I'm going. So the Neola will be like a stranger, like a still like the catcher guy and we're like talking and basically like them. like him totally worriedly like talking about like his like daughter situation and everything like the scenario that I'm looking at. And I'm looking right now for two possibilities. Like one person is basically like the caricature guy, like basically just like the wanting meeting like a bond matter and like another like maybe like the bond matter like the caricature guy might not be okay. Like the doctors might have told like the caricature guy that like it's like bond matter will not be okay for like would not say that his child might be along the lines, maybe the doctors might have thought caricature guy. So like he might have been currently looking for someone who could like donate the bone marrow for his daughter. So definitely might have been, but he might have not been like able to like find anyone and got anyone to like donate the bone marrow. It's also like about this element of the mind. So like was different like with that like that so like that being one possibility there. But and about different like on top of that not being able to like find anyone to like donate the bone marrow for his like child also for like the money required for like the operation as well for like he would be not at all having so like I'm thinking he would be desperately drawing all these characters hoping that like he would be like some miracle could happen and like for him to like make be able to like make all that money also like the opportunity that I'm looking is for like the doctor the possibility telling like the caregiver guy that like it was matters like the fit for like the child and basically yeah, like that person won't be having like the caricature guy won't be having like the money for like the surgeries like the scenario that I'm looking to. But that being the situation, like it would be like regardless of these two situations, like solely due to like solely due to like definitely regardless of the situation, like the operation may be like getting delayed. It's definitely one of the ambitious one. So like a person for like the child will be getting delayed. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. Him saying all this to himself saying all this to like Neo at that point in our was like the scenario that so like I'm probably like Neo probably listening to like all that he was saying and like then I was with like Neo secretly like meeting with like the doctor that would be like in charge of like and take care of like looking after like that caricature guys doctor Neo correct. Because like Neo privately meeting up with that doctor and like asking doctor asking that doctor to like basically if that bone marrow would be like able would be okay for like the child like basically to save the child. I don't such lines like I'm looking like Neo asking that doctor and like the I'm looking maybe like at that point like the doctor coming out that checks on Neo and doctor telling me all that basically yes it's possible to get on the lines like I'm looking that some doctor telling me all but like I'm looking at that point New York telling the doctor that basically that like he will like give a bone marrow to like the child and to save the child but like the doctor has to like keep that a secret from that girl as well as the father who get on the lines like New York would be telling the doctor and anyone would be saying like around like 6 or 7 days from that day until like anyone would be like even bringing like the catch up well to perform like the burger and everything. If they along the lines like you will be telling that also like scenario that I'm also trying but like you will be telling that also like keep it like a secret from like that girl and her cat gets a bad father. So this is like the scenario that is in that way like does that absolute determinant I'm assuming until that point, like Neo would might have been disturbed about like entering into like the Squid Game, even the same version, because like at that point, like Neo might have actually since that about the range, I'm assuming Neo in like the past, like in during like the period of latest into this game, like Neo might have been working on like a game or stuff like Neo might totally know that as to like know as to like what like this game is like how dangerous it is and about like how really like the reward money of this game is and all that. So and like Neo would be like everything like until that. So like my sister impression said like Neo for Neo like after getting like second job like Neo might have been kind of like tiny bit on the fence to like believe like Neo should re-enter back into such a dangerous game and that too as like a game candidate play like a dangerous game or not. That Neo was right. Though Neo might have wanted and Neo even take such a decision would be solely to like basically spend all that to play and win with the hope of playing and winning this game and to be able to spend all that reward money into like trying to like find sort of from like the other countries that even with the regulations. But like I'm saying, you all might have still like I'm maybe like you spark to any period of years and as well as like they believe that guy at the boss like that border guy like basically even telling me also like move on and everything like I'm thinking you still might have had like a tiny bit of like a doubt or like a confusion as to like whether he should like actually even after like resigning from like the job, like you still might have had like a certain disturbing kind of like a conversation as to like without an absolute certainty, might have had like a certain tiny bit of a conversation if like she actually has to like take the leap and enter into like the PM or not. But like I'm considering like right now, it's like I'm considering like one like would be like I'm considering private meeting just like that of would be like looking after like would be like in charge of like the child of like the caregiver. Okay, so like I'm doing that interaction like the doctor was like, telling you that like the situation possibly being extremely critical and that like as soon as possible like the surgery needs to be performed. Be around the lines like the doctor would be at that point telling me all of like the in order if like they have to like save the child like in the along the lines and the different like doctor might be telling to like me all at that point like at that point I was thinking to the chance of it for neural to like there will be that absolute clarity in your mind as to like what neural could be that as for like neural entering like this could be like there will be that absolute clarity as well as determination that basically without even a trace of how that like neural will be at that point absolutely determined to like enter like this good game and win like this good game and you so that like he could like totally save that child would be along the lines in a determined manner and like neural deciding to like enter this game entering into like the when of the game into the like the scenario that happens like and my those impressions that like definitely like my those impressions that like in like the 20 game as well I'm looking like definitely unlike say of situation I'm looking like for Neo I'm looking like Neo actually surviving in like the 20 game uh, along with like Sangyon as well I'm looking like Neo as well would be surviving in like the 20 game and I'm looking like midway between not midway like I'm looking like it will be totally towards like the end of like the towards like maybe around like the time when it would be like the fifth game in like the first game that I'm looking like Sangyon would be finally that until then, like Sangyon of his stealthy would be like trying to like get all the Squid Game candidates to like basically to turn against like the speed running Squid Game and so that like they could like share like the reward money and that they bring them down using force and then to like hopefully take like the all the money like the last piggy bank and for like them to like share like the reward money would be a long place or like Sangyon totally telling them that he himself would be exactly himself is like the winner and then they write through that manner of maybe like Sangyon trying to convince them that basically they listen to like Sangyon, like Sangyon will be sharing to like reward money and along with his lines. So it's also like a possibility that I'm considering. And maybe like since like they are good game work like they might even recognize Sangyon. It's also like a possibility that I'm considering. So like maybe I'm considering that as well Sangyon totally attending that basically like since according to my current I'm considering definitely it should be like the 20 minutes of Sugian would be like the game for like the experience like the people who have who already knows what the game is like. So like for example there will definitely be ex good game workers among like the Squid Game candidates like participating in the 20 of the game and the one Sangyon were telling that like he is like the winner of like the 2020 Squid Game and has he still has all of a great concept of like the reward money and that he will give all that reward money to like city candidates if they help Sangyon out and brings down like to bring down like people working it the actual people person running like the game and basically to stop like the student performance for online exchange I'm going to directly like get the money from just like this reward money and all that and maybe like Sanjoni even telling them that like if they stop like the person from giving like that they would also be that they would also be able to like, get like all that money like the glass thingy back maybe like that might be like present within like the uh, it's also like a movement that I'm that like they will be also get able to like get all that money from like last piggy bank of like statues to game as well. Could be along like maybe like Sanjong telling them it's also like a potential now that I'm like so like but still I'm considering that them all agreeing to like that plan of Sanjong only after like a bunch of like images to games it's like scenario that I'm working on the like maybe like I'm working them or maybe in Sanjong secretary or like maybe initially them not agreeing like Sanjong, them all wanting to like play and play be like the winner of like the the first game. But like I'm looking like initially as like feels and I'm looking the the first game will be extremely difficult when compared to superiorly difficult when compared to like the gamers like the scenario where so like eventually I'm looking them all finally will be agreeing like Sanjong. So like by then like I'm looking in the last game and like a lot of money might out ended up being just a positive new thing. So like Sanjay will be also a part of the like offer like he would Sanjay will be also saying that like telling the those remains Squid Game candidates that like if they also help Sangyong bring down like the further run with Squid Game, like on top of sharing a good portion of his own Sangyong's own debt, like Sangyong would be also they would also be able to get all that money, like that last ticket back for like the 20 cost to the game as well. Would be around the line 10 different Sangyong would be usually bribing all of them and getting them to like basically work for the Sangyong. And basically their attempt to like basically bring down like the 20 cost to the game and to bring like that and then totally finally making their ultimate move like from uh, until I'm towards like the Squid Game or like towards the end of the Squid Game, I'm looking like their strategies and everything to bring down like Squid Game would be with that as good stealth like the scenario that I'm looking. Even while seeing like crazy monster, like still I'm looking at there will be a lot of stealthy moves that I'm looking they would also be making until that point. But like I'm looking it would be towards the end of like the Squid Game that I'm looking they will be actually like full on making their attack is like the scenario that I'm looking. And I was like a lot of that Studio candidates eventually ending up dying during that whole attack is like the scenario that I'm looking. And I was like eventually through this attack, like I'm looking like eventually like the front man as well as like a bunch of I'm looking like a bunch of Studio workers like at that point like trying to stop those Studio candidates and like bunch of Studio candidates as well as like a bunch of Studio workers as well tying in like the process like the scenario that I'm looking. And I was like the front man for like the children for Studio and going from like into the command for like the Indian first to the another during won't be like in Hawaii or doesn't even bring and so the maybe or like also like possibility that like the more possibility that like maybe like in being like one of like games playing at the Indian first game as one studio candidate. It's also like a possibility that kind of thing. Where like maybe like in how we getting all the close in like stealth and for what like the next studio would be and all that. So also like a possibility that I'm possible. So like definitely I'm looking like eventually one like the Sanjay would be along with like looking and would be making the move and making the attack on like the game versus and like the tournament. At that point I'm also like the eventual scenario to be maybe like the a bunch of game workers ending up playing in that attack and like the and like basically maybe that someone maybe managing to like escape or end up ending up dying in that attack like it's also like a possible scenario that I'm going. So like I'm going to through such a manner how I'm talking like eventually like Neol would be like so that being like the solution for like I'm looking like Neol eventually ending up surviving the 2010 after entering it to like the 2010 first game like Neol eventually surviving through such a manner. Just like due to like such solely due to like such the situation and the attack happening within like this game will take during like the 24 so this game is like the scenario that I was in. So and after that, like I'm looking like even though Sangyon and I'm looking like maybe Sangyon totally think that like basically by taking out like some math that and I'm looking like on like Sangyon will be that unmasking the front man it won't be info and I'm looking like actually a lot of scenario happening and maybe like I'm looking like maybe I'm looking Jan Ho's luck as well so they're running out. I'm looking like Jan Ho totally eventually succeeding in like infiltrating into like the video report to the end of the thing, but still I'm looking to mention that like the case of Jan Ho like I'm looking this time Janko won't be able to, under the current not being able to like encourage into like the ship that would be taking all the Squid Game mans to the Squid Game man. So like Janko not being able to like encourage into the ship and that way like Janko like having the ultimate task of like finding that this Squid Game island on his own once again just before like Squid Game continuing the Squid Game and then so like I'm looking by the time Janko is finally finding like, the continuing of Squid Game island like I'm looking Janko it will be already like the Squid Game would be taking place on against like the scenario that I was in. So like I'm gonna maybe during that integration, maybe like jump off possibly into ending up time having this letter run out time jump over the ending up time. So like I'm gonna it would be after that like I'm gonna maybe Sangyeon would be finally unmasked capturing and maybe like go that for attack like maybe that frontman in like the 20 box will get ending up high. So like at that point like Sangyeon unmasking like the frontman so also like a possibility that person of the company. So like at that point, like the front man would definitely be not influence somebody else. So like yet like solely this like jump or not revealing to like Sanjo that like if jump over the info that like the front man like Sanjo not realizing that and Sanjo and also and leaving like the 2024 game and maybe like during some at some point like maybe like info realizing this like Sanjo's plan as well. It's also like a if even if like I'm looking like maybe like info ending up being like a good game candidate for like the 20 works good game and even then like I'm looking maybe like info not finding out about like about like Sanjay's plan, or like I'm thinking for finding out about like Sanjay's plan, and secretly trying to inform like game workers and all that. Yet like them being smarter with like Sanjay's like ultimate strategy plan or something. Maybe that definitely I'm like importantly surviving while like the other frontman would be like a new frontman for like the re-election. Usually I think at times like the scenario that is very maybe at that point like I'm looking Sanjay or living that like easily because like the frontman ending up dying like really absolutely no one would be able to like run like this games anymore. Maybe around the lines like Sanjay would be totally consumed. So like I'm looking like after like escaping from like that 2024 Squid game. Like I'm looking like while escaping like Sanjay as well as like Neo and also maybe the do that escape and everything like uh once like they would all were coming back like and by then like Neo and Sanjon would have a great bond friendship would be formed between like Neo and Sanjon through like that through the whole journey like the religion first we remember some great bond of friendship being formed between like Neo and Sanjon. And I was like Sanjon finding out about like Neo's situation and everything. So like I'm looking by the time like Neo and Sanjon would be like leading therapist again. When the first to the end like I'm looking like by then Sanjay will be like promising me also like basically that to help me or like basically save that child that's like in like the hospital and everything. So like that way like but like I'm looking while Sanjay will run back to like the pink model and looking at Sanjay probably finding that since like right now currently like the majority of like Sanjay's self or like the entirety of like Sanjay's self right now since Sanjay has revealed that to like Junko just now in reflecting model in one of the rooms in like the wing model and was like by the time Sanjay returned back to reflecting model and was like especially since like with like the Lucky guy and finding out like the location of like Sanjay's space being like the wing model and everything and was like uh, once like the Lucky guy had found that out and he might have totally found that location through the first choice that Limo was right to go. Like after finding that out, like before the back of the guy that like he might have totally informed that location of secretary model to even that info as well as also take a look at them. So like I'm looking like after like throwing like the 2024 to again like once like Sanjo was back stealing that basically that like the games won't be like running will be able to like run anymore that he has defeated like the final main boss of the institute. That's like running race and everything. Once like I'm going to return back to like shopping model to get this like money to like help to probably help Neo like at that point I was running Sanjong maybe getting like the biggest discrepancy of it, like in like shipping model like all that money gone in like shipping model all that like reward money of Sanjong from like like all that wealth of Sanjong totally getting stolen is like also like a possibility that I'm different. But like I'm looking even then like Sanjong might have prepare like a backup strategy before like entering into like the 2024 Squid game. And Sanjong might have like hidden like a bit of like that just like on reward money somewhere else. And like so that Sanjong from that small country like that reward setup like a reward money that Sanjong might have hidden. Like I'm looking at Sanjong giving and giving taking out money from that and giving it to Neol and that way Neol saving like Neol definitely most likely will be like eventually like donating sort of bone marrow and I'm looking like and also the money and basically Neol saving that child of like the scenario that I'm delivering and like at that point I was like the caricature guy would be like and I was at that point like I'm looking like that child would have help some of the scenario like sort of help getting so extremely worse and basically are being on like the verge of like the scenario that I'm doing. So like right at that very last second, I'm just you would be like showing up with like the money and then with like simply like because of the getting performed and then with like solely due to like showing up with like the money and donating as no matter like I'm putting that child being saved and I'm looking for like at that point definitely the cat is okay like probably won't be able to like time enough for like would be like so extremely grateful for and that would be like thanking so much and also like that whole situation like eventually resulting in like ending up being part of like the family of secretary guy and that will like the scenario that and I'm also going that from the money that would be like left with like Sanjay and looking for like Sanjay would be like once again like and I was by the time like Sanjay will be returning like I'm looking like that sort of guy might have only found like the mother of Chio in like the other country, but like by then like she would have totally died, but like I'm looking solely due to like Uh, but like I'm listening, even though it's revealed that she's not well, like already positive or not well or something, everything is still I'm listening right before her death. But that's like I'm listening, she might have taken care of that 1 year old daughter of like neologist, like Nima with brain cancer. So like that 1 year old daughter might have grew up with that uh, CEO's mother. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. So like I'm looking by the time that's about guy will be finding like CEO's mother, like she would be also like finding that Neo's daughter as well, like the scenario that I'm looking. So like by the time like the 2024 the game would be over and like Sangyeon would have come back to like about guy, like that would be like that surprising news about like Sangyeon. So like I'm looking like even though so like I'm looking Sangyeon keeping in like Seoul's mother kept like a secret from Seoul and no originally that like Seoul while Sangyeon was bringing that daughter of like Neo who would have grown up bit by then like grown up so the instant by then like I'm looking like that 1 year old daughter of Neo by then might be like 5 year or something like a something to that end. So like I'm looking at that point, Sanjo bringing that daughter of Neo to Neo at that point and Neo getting the biggest shock and then was connected that caricature guy as well as like along with like her, his daughter like I'm thinking like Neil as well as like her actual daughter as well like with them all becoming a family and then with them all living together happily. It's like seven to scenario that I'm looking at the parameter impression. While Sanjo will be totally feeling content for kind of like a feeling thing that basically he has finally put an end to like this video. Like at that point is when I was like actually Sanjon getting the biggest shock. With like Sanjon getting some sort of like a clue as for like the person runs experience still being alive. That like the frontman that had died back that don't like that to the end of the story between what's the game was not that actual run and that there are more people that like still run the experience would be along the lines of like Sanjong getting like a shocking just of like a realization at that point. It's like the scenario that I'm like, and that would be definitely I was gonna like either to be through like in or telling Sanjong to like show up to like expect like the whole William card telling Sanjong to like show up to like the sky building uh, and everything like I'm gonna be maybe like such Korean card like basically appearing for like Sanjon telling Sanjon to like show up like from the veteran and they are like probably Sanjon being confronted by him who like the possibility that is occurring and that way like or like I'm wondering like at that point when Sanjon is only thing that like everything is over and that Sanjon has stopped this game like basically during that time Sanjon getting a phone call and I was wondering at that point that phone call will be from info and okay, so like roughly around the 3% right now, that's what like Sangyong right now turning his speed into like a location right now, like it can still this strategy of like Sangyong, this should be like not only according to like the idea of like not only just Sangyong, but like although it maybe it might be jump of idea. It's also like a local that I was also like I'm looking like this strategy of like basically that way to like for example to be able to like find like the CDM island. I'm looking that strategy of the trading. And it's like the scenario that I'm looking at. But going like the scenario would be like I'm looking like Sanjon being taken through that CDM plan and like would be once again taken to that 20 but like I'm looking like definitely step and I'm looking this time like I'm looking like that it will be like a team of like the stuff Choi as well as Janho. This time it won't be like Janho alone, but like I'm looking this time it will be like stuff Choi as well along with like Janho and I'm looking from the port like I'm looking next time probably getting into that very same ship as that of like that old man front of like Janho. The sense that the phone like Janho had basically search for like the game item for like the past two or three kind of 2 years I think like maybe. So like it will be very that very same board man his and this board like in which like I'm putting like Janko as well as like the story would be like using that using their phone like would be like tracing using the tracking location of like Sanjay so Sanjay speed like they will be following after like the ship that would be like taking all the game and to like game and but like I'm looking like just that their journey would be like and I'm looking like as their journey through like the seas would be like midway into like reaching like this big game island like usually midway itself I'm looking it have to be like a huge storm and I was looking that storm totally goes in and like the things like it would be that that old man's boat is not that cynical and since it's kind of old, I think like they really have to get in that that boat totally capsizes during that there will be like huge waves in that the sea during that storm and everything like that their boat like totally capsizing while like the ship while like the huge ship of like Scythian those of like Scythian was like those of like the huge ship of like Scythian would be like still making it to like the Scythian and the like an unconscious Sanjon but like those of like or like at the point, like Sangam might be doing something to like basically you can not fall unconscious or but it's like it's time is like the scenario that I'm doing. Yet like I'm doing Sangam is pretending to be unconscious and Sangam at the point simply watching like through like the window or like something like that, simply watching like the path through like he will be taken to like the studio island. It's like the stealthy is like the scenario that I'm doing. Yes, like I'm doing the scenario to be with like the situation for like Janko as well as like Joy as well as like that both men would be like I'm doing them. They're both totally captivating in that storm and that causing like that causing like the boatman to totally die. It's like getting the moment like the boat will be getting outside like I'm doing with that old man dying. And then was going to have Joy as well as Janko on the screen, them to totally survive. But like then while they were just surviving like when the boat would be captured in them probably do think they are spawned like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like I'm looking like for yeah, and I was looking like by the time like Mr. Choi as well as like John probably like struggling their way into like making it a show like I'm looking like by then like I'm looking like they like John would be like they would like sort of try to like get upon us or not talking. So like, it was like I'm looking like even with like a brand new phone like I was there would be some sort of like a code or something like to which like basically to access that code like the tracking locations of like Sanjons, but by the time like they will be getting their hands on like a new phone and this would be like trying to track Sanjon. So through Sanjon street street, like by then like I'm looking like already the very first game might have begun. Like the scenario that I'm looking and in like that very first game and like the first game like I'm looking like um in that very first game itself, I am looking like the nature of it would be such that basically that would be resulting in like Sandron while playing that very first game, like I'm looking like it would be like the situation would be like Sandron getting attacked or something by the nature of this game, like that. Sandron while playing that game, like getting a hard blow to like cheat and causing like causing this like his teeth like teeth coming off and basically getting thrashed away like the scenario by playing that very first game like in like during the first video is like the scenario that I was doing and like at that point I was like that maybe it would be like a game at like at like a higher location like at a higher point exactly like how like that tug of war to game and like the to game was like maybe like along first lines of like a scenario like one positive that I'm looking and that will like that is falling into such confused depth of like a location to like the one possible scenario that I'm looking and that way maybe like oh that fall like maybe that the device getting like destroyed like you guys getting destroyed from like fall it's like one positive scenario that I'm looking or like the other possible scenario that I'm looking maybe for like that during that it's the nature of that game. The first game later is not only such that basically Sanjon will be like losing his teeth, but like that exact teeth, but like Sanjon won't be able to like go after and pick up that teeth, even though Sanjon would badly and really want to like Sanjon not being able to do that because like there will be all those two gamers are standing right there watching Sanjon. So like I'm thinking like Sanjon totally being forced to like finish that stick game and Sanjon has to like finish that stick game take all the time from the or else like Sanjon has to be and get time in that stick game. So like I'm doing Sanjon totally like focusing on like even though like it's interacting is still like Sanjon totally focusing on completing that stick game with like good scenarios that I'm and Sanjon was only planning on basically sneaking out of the stick game candidate for the name of like using like the watch for Sanjon to like that sneak out stealthily and basically try to like find that that tracking location safe and to get it back. So you're totally maybe attempting to such a thing and basically still all that is like totally failing. And I was even by then like maybe one of the incident might workers might have thought of the like tracking location safe and like and like then giving it to like the front man of like the really for to give like that front man like totally destroying uh realizing that it's like a tracking location thing and him totally destroying it. So like I was looking by the time like Jan Ho as well as like Sister Joy will be watching the show and like they will be finally really quickly getting their hand on a new cell phone like I'm looking by then like I'm looking they won't be able to like track like Sangyong seat because like by then it is that seat would have probably got us destroyed. Like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like that way like basically is the ultimate backfiring of like the ultimate situation of the ultimate strategy getting backfired. That's like the scenario that I'm looking at. And at that point I'm looking at the out there Portman that it would be like the ultimate task for Jung Ho as well as like Mr. Choi to like to get up like to maybe find a new boardman or like to for them to like literally uh, go like go into the sea on a them to like for example to like ride a new boat by himself like or like for them getting like a new boardman and literally then like having the ultimate task which like Janko had failed for like the past 2 years I think like to find the Korean island like once again like Janko being forced to like once again do that very same task, but like the situation being even worse with like basically Janko being aware that like there is a positive things going on and that like the pressure will be extreme that like Janko will be having to like make it to that city and island before like the time runs out before like the sixth phase of like the 2020 or the end of like, the 2024 so the end will be over so that like at that point like that year so like chance of Janko to like capture them um capture the people running the game would be over. And also like Janho behind that other person that is like Janho doesn't make it like as soon as possible to like and finds like the and with infiltration to like the religion for the game between like maybe also like the possibility of like Sanjon that without like myself like Sanjon possibly ending up even dying in like certain universe to game as well as like also would be like such a real possibility for like Janho. If you like Sanjon like well and Sanjon like knowledge about like Syrian and everything like Sanjon would be like a great help like Janho in this plus to like basically stop the students, especially Michael Jerry and Paramchan. So like I'm saying that Jano that way like basically along with like story that and the partner is possibly like basically frantically searching around to find like the Studium Island and looking for Studium Island and then looking that's the day like them eventually finding like the trading report Studium Island. And by then, like I'm looking like it will be like the other thing that happening while like such a Squid Game of like thing like the content for Squid Game while the Squid Game will be taking place so only by then, like I'm going to jump on so it might be like finding that the stadium island and integrating to like the food building by then, like fitting the scenario that I'm looking at. Also, the cinema is very much right now, but like the current situation of Sanjon with like Sanjon having gotten like Indian card inviting Sanjon to like show up to like this club to like basically meet like the person running his studio and everything. The thing I'm looking like info definitely not at all showing up to that club, but like the scenario that I'm doing. I'm looking definitely like the Rakiji guy before it does like definitely things like he has always thoroughly explored like my daughter has thoroughly explored like the pin model of Sanjon and like with like him having left like Mr. Joy side up and there in his like pin model even to Sanjon showed up like and even while Sanjon back then had showed up to like pin model like even the pin had been lightened up by like the Rakiji guy. I don't know. So like the Rakiji guy might have explored the entire depth of the pink model before Sanjon returned back to his pink model. Like the Rakiji guy might have explored that probably the entirety of like Sanjon's pink model and might have seen like the entirety of like the weapons collection of like Sanjon in like the pink model as well as all of Sanjon's money uh, and everything. So definitely one of the ambitions. So definitely the scenario that I'm considering is like Sanjon, while like right now Sangyeon as well as like Junho like strategizing that it would be that according to their strategy because of them might have because like, they would have strategized so much that basically right now this like team strategy as well everything like right now they would be like right now with the free team tracking location strategy and everything like it would be and I was bring like so like spam like it was bring like in the club like I was bring like it would be like through the tracking of by tracking Sangyeon's teams like I'm different spam it would be just like Jungle and like not like the remaining police force or like the police chief. Like I'm definitely for example to like not those price like I'm like the police chief to get and bring all the remaining police team to like basically go up to the club to spend like the scenario that I'm raising. Because for right now since like Jang Ho knows that basically info that like basically they're running like this game that leads Jang Ho be like not telling the like police chief about like current situation about like the club invitation of Sanjon for this game and everything. So like I'm putting Jang Ho instead like basically deciding to like rely on Sanjon for help and that way like through Jang Ho and Sanjon's like while they able to make Sanjon totally another thing that you that John Paul with any time John would be that like really the like the end up saying that in order for them to show up they would need like actual evidence and also like John Paul might have said as like the excuse to like Sangyeon. So like that will Jungkook might have told that way so Sangyeon might have told Jungkook that way so he would be getting a lot of men to like basically with like with like armed men like to basically and they should like basically through Sangyeon's street like they would be announced like Jungkook would like track down like the location of like the club and basically them to like make the ultimate ambush attack and basically capture like the person running the game. And it would be like the plan of like the Sangyeon and Jungkook, right? Like in the case of Jungkook, like I'm thinking Jungkook we're only planning on we're only expecting that from man like for himself like to work to that club. And like to Jungkook and the thing like would have given like private comments to like without Sangyeon's knowledge, like Jungkook was usually shortly before their ambush attack giving like that private comments to like all of those men that basically in such a way that basically Jungkook would be able to like capture and save like and capture and take away like info without like absolutely none of them like taking their life or like without like Kangyeon finding out that like it's like info it's like the frontman and all that stuff. So like such a way like Jungkook will right now would be like privately like creating its own strategy to like ensure like makes that happen. So like basically save Jungkook and as a intro and like John Ho would only still believe holding on to the belief that like John Ho would be able to like bring back info and change info and save info definitely understood and it would always do that extremely good attitude and that kind of a feeling that will be within like John Ho due to like info giving him that organ so that and that being the source reason for like John Ho even being able to like survive into the second day and all that like the new like Jungho did only optimistic that he will be able to like save and change info. Definitely one of the generation though. Even to the person, it's definitely one of the generation though. Like I'm going like them all strategies in some in such a manner. But like I'm saying once they would be making their ambush attack like and I was definitely like the person that wearing like the frontman outfit like would be going up to like the club and I'm doing either like in like that club like I'm just like scenario would be like the club would be totally empty. It would be just Sang as well as like that person wearing like the frontman outfit and basically and then there would be only the waiters aspect. There was absolutely nobody else in that club at that point of like the scenario that happened. And so like I was thinking like at that point like this whole interaction happening and it was something like at that point and my particular impression was for like at that point in the club like the frontman giving Sangyeon in that private interaction like I was even like man giving Sangyeon. And I was wondering that even Sangyeon would be like probably everything the interaction between like Sangyeon and like the frontman in that club would be like probably would be hearable for like Jamso, definitely would try. So I'm going within this like costume would have definitely put up some sort of like a microphone like thing so that like everything the during that interaction would be like audible for like even at a remote distance for like Jamso's like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm doing right before Jamso's like ambush to like the remaining of like Sanjon's like team members like team members like I'm doing like before their ambush attack like I'm doing like Jamso hearing that like through this like conversation I'm looking like and definitely the frontman's like muscle would only having some sort of like a muffler like kind of like thing. So like I'm looking like it would be like a distorted voice of like the person in like the frontman costume that like even John would be hearing. So like I'm looking like John would only thinking that it would be solely due to that. And John would only still believing that that frontman would be totally info. So like I'm looking that the frontman is within that club at that point telling Sang about like basically him since like Sang so badly wants to like end like and destroy and then like put an end to like this game like he's going to give Sang a chance and was him telling Sang to like and I'm also like him telling Sang to like basically win in like the 2024 game it would be like to game for like the experience and basically him that for a man at that point really like Sang about like how in like the 2024 game like X to game candidates as well as like Squid Game candidates as well as like to escape like Squid Game through like the majority voting as well as like Squid Game voters would be like the ones among like the would be like the collective of the entire Squid Game candidates who would be taking part in like the 2024 Squid Games. So like if Sun Jones can defeat all of them and be like the winner in like the 2024 Squid Game, then like basically that him making the offer and bet for like Sanjon that like the government telling Sanjon that like then he would like end like the Squid Game for function like for good like basically along those lines him making that bet for Sanjo. So like at that point like him saying all this to like Sanjo and him waiting for Sanjo to reply. So like right before Sanjo would be able to say anything like the ambush attack happening and I'm looking like him that frontman straight away getting captured. is like by example, like the scenario that I'm looking at, example, quickly taking off the mask and also putting like at that point, like I was, for example, getting like the biggest shock, and that would be that really like Sanjon and like the others won't be getting any shock because like they don't. It's already like they're not knowing that like it's like imposed that the front man and the person running the game. But like at that point, like, when Janko will be like taking off, quickly capturing him and taking off the mask, like Janko getting like the biggest shock that was like seeing like that the person showing up that had showed up as like from my not being info. So like definitely I was like definitely you could be able to like the target guy like already before that while exploring like Sanjon like being model having like discovered everything about like Sanjon like great number of weapons and everything and they might have informed all that to like info. So like and the info right now would be in like a different country itself. It's just, you know, like remotely info, it would be all info strategy and the info might have assigned some a fake front man to like basically show up to like the club to just to the intent to like deliver this message to like Sanjon. I don't definitely my friends and deliver this like to game card which he would be delivered to like Sanjon at that point. Definitely my friends just to have Sanjon enter into like the region for games of that experience like and that the game itself should be my friends would be intended to like end like uh what like the from info with already the actual from an info with only being as like Sanjon as like a nuisance that needs to be uh, get rid of like if info wants to continue like the students for like the next for like the future for 2025 and upward to the future like thank you if he wants to be able to like contact like students in like the future like he has to like, get rid of Sanjay to be an offline use it again so like other than the 2024 game solely intended to like get rid of Sanjay so like I'm looking Sanjay totally lag or all of them totally getting outsmarted and I'm with lag definitely lag. Even though Sangeon and all of the others will be totally thinking that it will be that initially would be like while I'm asking if they would always think that it's like the front man, but like I was doing like through like even though Janko is straight away, Janko don't will straight away realize that like it's not like the front man, it's not info. But still I was doing like through their interaction itself, like I was doing like Janko straight away telling Sangeon that basically like I was doing that fake front man will be totally extremely scared as well during the while he will be getting captured as well, like the scenario that happened. So like I'm looking like example at that point itself like telling Sanjay that like the person running the studio, the actual front man won't be like someone to get so scared so easily will be along the lines like example will be telling Sanjay and convincing Sanjay that like that person like the front man person is not the actual front man, it's like the scenarios that I'm looking at. So like I'm looking like at that point they're more trying to like interrogate him and basically scaring him and trying to get information out of him. But like I'm looking like the only thing he would be like we will be knowing that basically that way from and the only thing he would be knowing that like some person wearing a mask had basically uh, given him a lot of money and basically had like most likely that this person like fake from and everything might have been like approached by someone. He might have maybe even been like a homeless person. It's also like about the maybe like a homeless person that might have been approached by like info or like enforcement with like while bearing a mask like and giving him this mission to like basically to get this like invitation of like civilian guard to like sign out might have been like the scenarios definitely was written. So that would be like the only information that like that fake front man would be even knowing at that point. It's like scenario that I'm thinking. So it's like Sanjon and others will be figuring out of their interrogations like the scenario that I'm thinking. But like after that interrogation everything like I was doing like uh maybe Sanjon even getting a call from like the front man at that point is also like the scenario that I'm looking at. At that point, I was looking maybe it being like info that will be calling Sanjon and like info totally like telling Sanjon that basically that it's not a fool but that's only for specifically for Sanjon along this lines like info maybe throws upon for telling Sanjon lines like also like about the level story. And I was like him telling Sanjon that basically Sanjon wants to like and like specific William for like one time for like basically for Sanjon to like enter into like the 2024 game and win it. Would be along the lines of like a challenge that he was going to pick. And at that point I was wondering maybe like for Sanjon like straight away agree. It's also like a scenario that I wasn't like. And at that point I was thinking definitely for like Sanjon to like accept the challenge of like the frontman and they go like, during that call and act the challenge of him for like the frontman during that call. But like I'm wondering as soon as like Sanjo will be hanging up on that call at that point, I was like upright the thing challenge and the like Sanjo totally telling Janko that like we need to put an end do this ourselves and basically not to do that like Sangyon will be entering into like the 2024 Indian while Janko that should like using the tracking speed like basically they should like basically eventually infiltrate and put an end to like the and attack like the Squid Game building and basically that way they would put an end to like the Squid Game anyhow possible like basically I don't it's like them deciding but and I'm also like definitely with that like Sangyon topic entering into like the first game is like the scenario that I'm looking. Yeah, like I was for the remaining part, like I was still thinking about the ambition for like the whole tracking device strategy, like still failing, and basically that way like Sangyon like basically yeah, yeah, and at that point I was when Sangyon also like for me fighting from the same using his own strategy and trying to get the remaining Studian candidates to like team up with like Sangyon to like totally put an end to attack like the Styrian wedding and the Styrian workers and basically put an end to like the Styrian and basically steal like for them to like steal like the money in like the glass piggy bank and all that like that Sangyon attempting through such a manner or like Sangyon offering them to like give Sangyon's like steam well to all of them. It's in exchange for them help to Sangyon and out. But like for that like attempt of Sangyon failing until like I'm living like after a few experience like maybe after like the maybe after like third or fourth experience like I'm looking like finally like everyone deciding to like basically um, be part of like Sangyong's strategy. There's like eventual scenario that I was remembering and I was remembering. And my impression was that even though eventually through that whole attack strategy of Sangyong, which like Sangyong was only using in his like in the first billion, like even through that there would be like a lot of friction happening in like this billion building, like the first billion and everything. And even though like I'm a friend Sangyong as well towards the end, like Sangyong as well as New York could be surviving, still I'm a like even then like I was like after all that like and Sangyong was running back to his same model, even then like Sangyong was like getting a call and getting that job surprise that like the person behind it would be still alive and basically wasn't like the front man that Sanjong had basically maybe like was really taken the life of like brought down during like Smith attack and like for him. At that point I was like Sanjong possibly deciding to like basically actually play like the Squid game in like the 2024 Squid game and basically to actually play the Squid game to like win like the Squid game once again in like the 2025 Squid game so that like it was finally win the bet and finally to put an permanent end to like the games is like the scenario that I'm personally delivering and my personal ambition. And that would be season three is like the scenario that I'm doing on the range. So like the name of the ambition right now with like Sanjon right now selling junk so to like come with him because of that of like the fear of them recognizing junk like I'm definitely my personal ambition right now certainly that I'm strategy junk over right now using only my study definitely jump up on as well the routine that track up to that Sanjon's T3 so like when Sanjon will be making it to like the club like at that point I'm thinking like through the track up in like Janho's phone like I'm thinking like Janho totally stood that up to steps like Janho totally infiltrating into like that club and that was like Janho totally like usually like taking out like knocking out unconscious like one of like the waiters there in that club Madam Dorin so definitely would be like there was like example strategy that Jump would be that using would be like Jump would be using like perfectly a face mask. It's like the scenario that I was doing. So like I'm doing like Jump putting on a face mask and that Jump would be take like knocking unconscious one of like the waiter in that club like, with that absolute step like and both of like Janho like appearing from like a door like in the costume of that waiter with the face mask on like Amazon Janho like showing up and like basically like Janho probably as like a waiter like will be present right there in that club room where like Sanjon as well as like the fake frontman will be having them but each and person kind of scenario that I'm expecting. So this is like the scenario that I'm eventually printing with like the frontman that will be showing up to that club would definitely not only in forward like was it only a fake frontman totally according to like and that fake frontman number like not even having that senior role to play at all even in like for like security in the food games it is after like the scenario that I was going to think and like in the end so like I'm going to get so like in like the 2024 food games as well like the frontman won't be like in for still I'm going to that frontman won't even be like this current frontman that I'm going to be showing up to like the club to like basically to like that I'm going to be able to meet in like the club won't be even that from that community, like the job that the federation was doing, like the scenario that I'm in. And my brother Anderson. So like definitely my brother Anderson right now, as for like San John right now, after like calling his stuff, like basically like San John been getting so emotional and not even being able to like speak at all to his own daughter, like for the phone. Like I'm definitely that's the reason will be due to that extreme guilt that will be right now would be that still the thing like San John right now, especially when I'm because like right now San John would only seeing like the possibility of like San John during that meeting in like that club, like basically ending up dying is like the scenario that I'm because like from Sanjay's point of view, Sanjay would not that he's actually about with this person that like he would be like uh definitely about to meet like the person running like the entire experience in that club. So like I was on Sanjay from was like seriously considering like that possibility of like Sanjay like actually dying while showing up to that club. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. So like before Sanjay so like Sanjay would only feeling that before dying like he would want to like desperately speak to that's the person that only person in like the world that really he finds so extremely precious and like that like that he feels that belongs to him and that would be like the sort of like and it's definitely a reason. But like I'm doing for Sanjay not being able to like speak to her from back to his daughter and say like Sanjay or anything like Sanjay totally emotional getting emotional and tearing up and crying and without being able to like speak at all to his daughter only solely due to that extreme guilt that will be filled within Sanjay right now, especially because of back then after like winning like the reward money back then when while Santon was about to like board that flight from which like solely due to like that call from solely due to like seeing like the lucky guy and like seeing and getting that good game card and basically due to like that for like basically and everything like basically solely due to that when Sanjon had stepped away from like boarding that plane like I was saying like Sanjon might have been also like rejected because like or forgotten about this like by his own thought back then certainly because like back then I'm still thinking about the reason that like back then Sandra might have been planning on like boarding that plane and basically might have even thought himself that a citizenship in like America. So to like stay at the house that's like close to like the house where he like thought he was staying in. Like they might have been with that intent and that way to like in a way that way to like really spend time to be able to like spend time to like the every day and really through such a manner for Sanjay to be able to like live with for the remaining of Sanjay's like with all these hopes and desires like Sanjay might have been about to board that plane when like due to like seeing like the Rakiti guy and like receiving like a call from like the Sangman and everything. Basically, like due to seeing that call and everything, like basically Sanjay when he decided to like really not board that plane like and since then I'm going to like to since then leading to the person like Sanjay might have always forgotten about his like daughter's stepping over there. Sanjay might have been filled with the thoughts of like wanting to catch like the people, wanting to catch and stop like the people behind like the student people that are running away in the game. It's definitely my personal impression because like definitely like because like I'm assuming like the after like in now that like I'm certain Sanjay might have been the only thing that is really the so like basically like the until that point like I'm assuming it's after like seeing Ilnam and like Sanjay realizing that Ilnam was running this game and seeing at that point like on that sky building like when Ilnam died right in front of Sanjay like yeah at that point like Sanjay might have totally thought that basically it was just that the Squid game might end, but like like even though like India might had revealed about like the realities to Sanjay and so like still Sanjay might have already thought that at least with that like the Squid games might end might be along the line Sanjay might have thought. So like Amazon actions might have been after that like really kind of like a feeling that Sanjay might have had since that point. After like saying enough that's like I'm something like it might have been when like Sanjay might have seeing that Bharati guy in that subway like basically Sanjay was like eventually about to that day said that board that plane to America like basically seeing that Bharati guy and might have been such an absolute shock for Sanjay. So that like it might be only at that point that Sanjay might have felt along the lines that like basically this game is still going on. He definitely remembers the emergency. So that like that shock might have been a huge factor in basically Sanjay basically deciding to like make it like the biggest priority in his life, even more than his like and that way like even more than his daughter and even Sanjay forgetting about his daughter and like prioritizing like the destruction and like the ending of like the like and ensuring to like end like the Squid Games like to ensure that the Squid Games doesn't happen anymore and people doesn't suffer anymore like really Sanjay prioritizing that at that point and he was more, even more than Sanjay's girlfriend, like deciding not to like board the planes might have been all connected to that shock that Sanjon might have had that point at the realization that games are possibility of lectures been still going on, especially when the train was so since then, and since then, leading to the person like Sanjon might have only forgotten about this like doctors that we were the pyramid. And I'm like right now, as like Sanjon might feel like strongly feeling that like asking like as like Sanjon's like about to go to the club and meet with like the person running like then that is became like about the Sanjon dying would be really high. So like I'm like Sanjon might have felt that way and like certainly it would be only at that point. Um, when faced with like an actual like situation right now that like I'm looking like Sanjay right now might have felt like actually like calling actually I remembered his like daughter and like that might be the reason for like Sanjay calling his daughter yet like due to like the entire time Sanjay forgetting about his daughter like that would be that absolute pure guilt within Sanjay that which like might be like the reason for like Sanjay not being able to like speak to his daughter right now through like the phone. It's definitely my person to the so like negative reactions and next to that day when Sanjon had refused to like board that plane like and from that day on to like after we see a passing like this even to the person like Sanjon might have that forgotten about his daughter to the point of like Sanjon not even actually having not even thought his daughter not even once at all throughout his entire these past years like since like refusing to like board that plane like considering it might be only right now in the present that Sanjon might have when third access daughter's voice and that to like the phone is definitely my during and question. Yes, and the clear on the reaction right now, just like new right now, basically as soon as like the Squid Game worker like basically confirms like the information of new like for like cultivating like the Squid Game like at that moment itself like new is really throwing like the Squid Game card into like fire and burning it like I'm going to make it a bit of really because of like new totally not wanting anybody else to like totally even out of curiosity to like call that number in like that card even anyone because like even without realizing that anyone would only would be that much traumatized by that experience as like a good game as a like an good game worker in like the past. So that make my game so definitely like the last thing you would want would be to like anyone to like totally actually out of curiosity to like find this card and actually call out this number and basically like without realizing like actually ending up without realizing anything about like this good game like actually ending up falling into the trap of like this good game and getting themselves into trouble like that would be like the last thing you would want. It's definitely my brother. So there's a reason to prevent that would be like there's a reason like anyone right now straight away after making like the call to enter into the stadium, like you know, straight away burning like the stadium card is like my very impression right now. And so like the impression right now is for like after like the stadium entry confirmation like the neon also right now burning like the drawing by that like the little girl just like she gave to like neon like basically even that would be like totally so that like neon wouldn't like after like getting that drawing like neon might have often like might have pressured that drawing and neon might have basically that often looked at that drawing and basically Neil would like somewhere like basically get the feeling of like having a daughter. Of the day when she had her daughter like basically through like this girl who had given the drawings to like Neil. So like time she would see that drawing like she Neil would be like only feeling sad, remembering thinking about her daughter like Neil would be totally feeling sad and basically Neil would be getting feeling sad and like Neil would be crying and Neil would be getting like weak and extremely emotional at that point. It's like scenario that I'm looking. So like right now with like Neil for like keeping not at all keeping that drawing with her, but like straight away burning that drawing into the circle because of like Neil from this point on would be wanting would be planning on like basically focusing fully on the game, like the games, preparing, focusing fully on like you know, would right now would want to like definitely would be like right now would you want it to like focus only on like the Squid Game to like the upcoming Squid Games, like the 2024 Squid Games and like focusing and strategizing on how to perfectly win like the 2024 Squid Game, make all that money and like to like totally save that save that child who's like unwell and they really also for to use all that money for her to like really to that use all that money to like find her actual true daughter as well. Like they need to achieve all this like to make all this happen. Like she right now like the newer method of it felt that right now like for her to like probably spend all of her time right now on focusing on making that focus and strategy and preparing for like the 2024 game on winning the 2024 season. Like uh, to do this might be like the reason for like uh, you know, right now like might have seen that drawing as like a distraction, but like that may be the reason for like the learning that drawing that that child gave to like Neo. Right now is definitely going to be reinvention. Over like the Neo reinvention right now that it begins like the club meetup location for like Sanjo to meet up from Manus in like a Halloween. It's since it's that Halloween party club. Like I'm definitely like the moment John Ho would be like realizing that like and this like this is so like calling and confirming like I think like John Ho like I'm like definitely the moment John Ho would be like realizing that it's like the location is like a Halloween party club like I'm looking that moment is like John Ho like totally putting on like buying a Halloween mask and then straight away entering into that club. Like the scenario that I'm looking for is definitely and definitely I'm looking like John Ho probably like doing like absolute everything to like protect that like person who is showing up as like the front man. But like I'm looking like jump for getting that absolute surprise that once like uh, that front man, the person who be like showing up as like the front man will be caught and like will be unmatched and like the space won't be that of like and he won't be that he won't be in for like at that point like that would be like the biggest stop of jump at that point. It's like feeling the scenario that is something on the Okay, so like the name of the Korean mentioned right now, as for like for right now, seeing like two people in like the outfit and uniform of like the and wearing the mask of like the Squid Game workers. Like I'm very like those as well number for it won't be like actual Squid Game workers at all. But you know the reason and so something like those people as well will be like all part of like the plan of like the strategic plan of like enforce the name of the will be like remotely giving orders to do all this stuff new for invisible like another like it would be like people working for like info that would have like probably found like another like those two like people wearing like the civilian worker uniform like they'll be walking into like the to like around like the area of like the ReEnter like definitely those two people would be like most like they're the random people or like another thing like they would be like as a homeless people like really being offered money by like an actual person working for this again wearing like the mask, like offering them money to basically dress up in this like costume, which would be like the outfit of like this game worker previously. And three of them would be there, like maybe one would be, two of them would be these two studio worker. They will be wearing these two studio worker costumes, by one of them would be wearing like the costume of like the front man. It's like the scenario that I'm right? So like even after like even while like Jumbo as well as like Sangal and all of them will be totally saying that basically they have finally caught like they have finally caught like these like people behind like this game and everything like then like I'm looking like after catching like it then like that I'm looking then probably realizing that like they have been tricked definitely been tricked and like it will be just to like this whole club meeting and everything would be just to like deliver like the invitation to like the Indian for to game card to like Sangyeon. It's definitely able as like a for like Sangyeon to participate in like the Indian for CDM as like a thing at the rate. Like the scenario that I'm looking for I'm still thinking about it. Also, the same about the ambition right now as for like one of like the person wearing like this gamer corporate outfit like basically right now using the taser on joy like the yeah, but even that person won't be like an actual game worker or won't even be knowing about anything about like this games or anything like that. That person as well will be the random person like who have been paid by like the actual game workers to do exactly this minimum of the ambition. So, like, they might have been given like the photo of like Sanjo and I'm also like they might have been given like the port of Sanjeon by like Sujin, actual Sujin worker, and they might have been told to like basically bring this person to like a specific location within that Halloween party club and to give him this like Sujin card, maybe along the lines that might also be a question. So definitely that might be the case. So like I'm thinking like they must have also according to like the order they might have been given like everything like it might have not just been like this, the two of them, like a bunch of them might have been there. So like I'm sure like the orders might have been to like basically if like along with this like person in like the portal there's like only one person or like regardless of how many person that's that are present there that shows up to like the club along with this person like person like dressed up as like studio worker should go into that club and basically take out that using the face up to that them to that totally put out and bring down like the people accompanying this person in like the photo would be along with the lines, and one of you should like basically bring like the person like the photo to this like this location and give this like in that might have been along the lines of like an order given to like all these people in exchange for like a huge sum of money for them to do. And these people in like right now in like this Indian worker uniform, like they are in uniform showing up to like the club, like really none of them will be like active to game on the set or the minimum still be going. Okay, so like the new one that I'm touching right now is that like within that Limo scene that basically that person from the first like a game or something right now has taken Sanjay to but like right now entering that limousine and like totally straight away seeing like a person like the front man like in within like that limousine is like the scenario that I'm looking at. Through that interaction definitely in giving that like a Indian chart to like Sangyon as like the set for like the 2024 Indian like the scenario that I was bringing like I was bringing Sangyon totally most likely unmasking quickly unmasking that person and like I was bringing like basically even before Sangyon attacks that person and was like he would be like totally scared. And I was like definitely once John be unmasking that person, who would be like fully in like the frontman costume and everything, like that person definitely won't be into at all. Like the person in like the LinkedIn would definitely not at all be is so definitely not friend. Okay, so like definitely not 300% right now as for like the frontman from like the golden ticket bank from like the limousine right now asking John after like what did that he want from like the frontman and the play like it would be definitely into that would be right now talking like Sanjon, definitely not 300%. So right now Sanjon will be telling him that like he wants to the who wants like the front man to like permanently end like games definitely with the rainbow jump. To which like I'm like info we were not expecting that like that's a response from Sanjon to that question that in another train. So like I was doing like straight away to make it seem appear natural like basically definitely even like bringing Sanjon to this club and everything might have been definitely according to like in-house plan to like get rid of Sanjon through like the 2024 game, which will be totally set up against like Sanjon to ensure that like, Sanjon won't be able to like survive in the 2024 game. Secondly, my prevention that I'm putting on to so like Sanjon right now about telling like the voice in that golden piggy bank that basically he wants to like he wants like the match to permanently end like the skip game. And on top of that, like I was saying, also telling that voice of like from that, like on top of like ending like that skip game that he wants even after that he wants also the front man to like surrender to like the police. Would be along the lines like I was like John right now will be telling that voice of like the front man in that golden big event like the scenario that I'm doing. So like the front man straight away like naturally to make it seem natural like I'm looking at that when the voice of the front man telling Sanjay that basically like there like the Indian card like right there like I'm looking there will be some sort of like a box or something and within that box like there will be like a Indian card purposefully intended to get Sanjay to play the experience again. So like I'm looking like at that point like the voice telling voice of the front man telling Sanjay that basically if Sanjay wants like this game to permanently end and if Sanjay wants me the person permanently game to like surrender basically Sanjay has all Sanjay has to do just to like play the 2024 game and win it once again, like would be along the lines of bring that voice at that point, pending making the best with like Sangyon is like the scenario that I'm looking at. Sangyon at that point would be like extremely enraged and frustrated. So like at that point, self I'm looking like Sangyon totally responding back to that question from like the front man by like Sangyon straight away, like giving the signal, and I was like and there will be some sort of a button or like a switch which will be alerting uh all the great number of argument of like Sanjay like instantly giving a signal to them. So like I'm looking at that point, self all of them like totally cornering that limousine at that point, and I was like them totally pulling out like the person driving like the limousine, and I was like at that point I was like it would be just like a random person that wouldn't be having absolutely no knowledge at all about like the studios or anything that would be like driving the limousine. Just like the scenario that I'm doing. So like him getting Sangyon probably would be might have totally expected that like probably catching the person driving like the limousine like that person that driver might know something connected to like this weekend, but like it genuinely won't be like knowing anything about like the games, so like the scenario that I was in. So like with that, like I'm looking that interaction with like the frontman at that point, ending is like the 1,000 scenario that I'm doing. Or like I was looking after that, like Sangyon once again turn back to like the stop limousine. And at that point, like the frontman might have not hang up the phone, so like I'm like throw the last figure and like Sangyon straight away and angry and frustrated going to at that point shouting out to the frontman that like that he's going to enter into like the 2024 game and that like along such lines and both differently. And he's going to win it would be along the lines Sanjon will be selling to that frontman at that in the to the golden ticket and at that point like the scenario that I was saying. Yet like I'm believing Sanjon's intent would be to like enter into like the 2024 game and not allow like any of like the games to take place and like to with that absolute strategy to for Sanjon to like in the name of entering into like the 2024 game to win like the 2024 game and put an end to like the game like in the only to put down such a fake act with like that still in the end of Sanjon was going to like enter into like the 2024 game and through the location fighting to have like Sanjon like in the army that basically destroy like and take out all the Squid Game workers and capture them and basically even capture like the VIPs as well as like the front man, the person running the Squid Game as well. And that way to like put an end to like permanently put an end to like the Squid Game. This intent like I was saying, Sanjon totally like putting on a fake act and basically telling like the front man who that golden ticket that basically he just to he actually is going to like enter into like the 20th game and is going to win it. It's like a scenario that is sitting on the also, like, but right now, for like the info of like the frontman right now, through like the golden ticket, I like asking Sanjon if like Sanjon's like plan is to like basically to convince like the host owners to like to stop like the race. Like so that the direction right now with like Sanjon's like comparison of like horse racing and betting on the horse racing with like the range of games and everything. But the direction right now is definitely that like through the dialogue of like the frontman or like info like basically info will be with like info seeing himself as like seeing himself as like the host owner and like the horses would be like the speaking candidate and info like the active frontman info would be like the person running the studio would be like the host owner uh and since like there are multiple horses and multiple horse owners like participating in like the horse race so like that would be like what that would be like most likely representing like the different symbolically representing like the different countries where like the Squid Game to be taking place exactly where would be by different host owners by different people like are running like the Squid Games in like different countries that would be like the different uh, different hosts different people host owners competing against each other to reach that finish line first and that would be like to like put up like the best Squid Game of that year like they will be all like all these host owners would be like competing between each other so that like the best like the one that will be making it to reaching like the host owner that will be like with that person like, that will be like reaching like the finish line first that year like that will be getting like so he will be getting that reward money like so this huge reward money at that point is like the scenario that I'm looking at and like the people betting on like the on like the people fighting in that and all the people like betting on like people on the horse owners like that would be like racing that horse racing would be like the VIP system in another presentation. So like I'm putting like right now for like right now I'm putting like the front man or right now telling Sangyon that if Sangyon wants to like end if Sangyon wants like the horse owners to like basically end or stop the race like Sangyon would have to like give like inform like the front man that extremely huge quantity of money which like the each year which like the front man would be getting if like we had won like if he wins like the horse race each year at first position like the money that we would be getting like if Sanjon wants like from minority to like not race each year for the remaining of his life then basically Sanjon would have to like deliver that exact quantity of money that he would have gotten if he had won the race at first position each year. So like that much quantity of money that Sanjon would have to like deliver to the frontman each year in exchange for like the frontman not conducting that games each year. It's like the demand that I'm looking right now, the frontman is demands like making to like Sanjay right now. But we are going to because like right now the frontman telling Sanjay that they really like according to like Sanjay, which is it like the frontman like the stops racing with like the horse owner stop the frontman horse owner like stops with like horse racing then all the other half horse owners with the forces that are competing against along with him, like against him, like they would all be going ahead, and basically they would all be like finishing ahead of him, and like so like basically to so and also like basically from that way would be like solely according to like Sanjion, like the Sanjyon these are like the front man listens and stops the race, then the man would be like losing his chance at like winning that horse race and finishing like at first place. So like that way, like the front man losing all that money, like front man stops the race and stops the Squid Games and comes to Sanjyon. And in exchange, so if Sanjyon, according to like Sanjyon, like the front man has to like stop like the Squid Game, then like the front man would want that huge set of huge quantity of money that like it should be along the lines of like the money that a Squid Game candidate would be making each year, like while the Squid Game candidate ends up becoming the winner of the Squid Game each year, like that huge quantity of money that a Squid Game candidate would be getting each year, the winner would be getting each year, like that exact money would be what like like the person running like this game, like Ilnam might have got like throughout the entire shift like the past years, while he was like running like this good game. Like each year, like Ilnam as well will be getting like a collective money from like the VIP equivalent to like the money like this to get winner will be getting each year. Especially when we put in better. So after like enough that it will be like that quantity of money will be like it will be like the front man or like info that would be like getting that money. That would be like that should have gotten that money, which like I'm looking like into right now will be triggered because like he might have not gotten all that money and he might have not actually been able to like raise due to like Sangyong using his like a reward money and like to like basically after like taking the decision to like not go on that flight back then like basically using all that money to like basically to capture like the people the money like experience. Since then like I was like info might have not been able to like participate in like the horse race and that way like not be might have not been able to like run like this games since then. But like info with thoroughly frustrated and angry with like Sangyon. So like I'm looking right now in telling Sangyon that basically if Sangyon wants info to like not conduct like this game anymore and basically that like Sangyon should participate in participate as like a host instead. And I was looking like maybe in telling Sangyon that like Sangyon maybe alone would have to like play like the Squid Game, six Squid Games like each year and would have to like survive like the Squid Games like each year in the place of like all the other to save like all the other Squid Game candidates. Sanjay would have to like participate in like Squid Game, six games Squid Game like each year by all by himself and would have to like survive and win like Squid Game like each year from that year onward. If like Sanjay wants to like put an end to like the if Sanjay wants like him to like not conduct like the Squid Game ever again, not have like not have like other innocent people like born to the trap of things game and play this game and end up dying ever again. Like Sangyon himself would have like participated in this game each year from that year on and win all this game and like there should even be like VIPs to like watch that as well. Much conditions would have like that. That's why like if the front man has to like basically stop like like for the race and basically stop like the studio account like content which is would be along the lines like the front man right now revealing to like Sangyon like the scenario that I'm doing and like I'm looking the front man giving Sangyon that studio card at that point. Basically at that point like front man telling Sangyon that like there's this box there will be a box right there and like open it and basically there will be like the studio card for like the 24 studio right there left for like Sangyon like the scenario that I'm doing. Oh, so like the name of the three merchant right now is like Sanjay right now asking over towards like the golden piggy bank and even telling like the front man like info like basically about like basically like ONM realizing that basically they had lost into game against Sanjay on fight before itself. Like basically this would be most likely a foreshadowing to like a foreshadowing or like a pre-shadowing. Like I'm remembering definitely that such a game winning and loss might have definitely there might have definitely been a history of that connecting to like the frontman info as well as like OLM as well as like Sangyon as well as like Sangyon's father who will be like I'm still thinking about the vision that like Sangyon's like actual father would definitely be like that identical twin brother of like OLM who looks exactly like OLM. And he might be like the person that might have actually had like the memory loss and everything. It's definitely my favorite. And he would be like Sangyon's actual father might be like the person that might have played along with like Sangyon in like the 2020 Squid Game for like the first three Squid Games and fight before like the fourth Squid Game. Like he might have like So Ilnam might have stealthily taken his life while he might have used like the stone. And then like Ilnam might have entered into the Squid game and back into like the speaking country, so pretending to be like basically like the pretending to be like the old man Venetia and might have played like the first game and while setting up like the first game to be like the master of game and so that like he could like totally unlike the previous three games like in like the master of game so that like he had like the option to like start time and basically to like totally trick everyone into like basically escaping alive from like the hot city. And it's definitely what might even after losing purposefully losing the Sanjon, it's definitely my first experience. So definitely the history would be going back to like the days where like Sanjon as well as like his father, like he might have been like that look at like or Ilnam like Sanjon as well as like his father back when they were like kids like I was like they might have totally played like all these like childhood games, not just the childhood games, but also the childhood games against like Innam as well as like Innam Sang Inho back then during like the medicine playing around, especially in that like where it's shown like very good things, especially with the time back then like it might have been always like Sanjay's father like always defeating like in that or in all those games that they might have played during their childhood and like the history might have repeated with like eventually as like Oinam as well as like Sanjay's father might have had kids like with like Sanjay as well as like um uh, as well as like Inho being born and once they were in the childhood days like tend to like basically showing up to like that very same playground and then to playing like the childhood games, including like Squid games and back then as well. But like it will always like Sangyeon that might have always won against like exactly like how Ilnam might have always feel this childhood might have lost to like Sangyeon father. Like in the case of like Ilnam's son, like Info as well might have always lost to like Sangyeon in that childhood game. Might have been what might have happened is definitely not the so like right now with like Sangyeon like as like Sangyeon is like asking over to like the Golden Piggy Bank and telling Info the frontman about like how Ilnam had right before his death, like Ilnam had realized that he had lost like Sangyeon, that this dialogue of Sangyeon might not only might right now be totally angering and frustrating and haunting like info right now. It's definitely not interesting because like he would be right now like right at this moment he will be having that memory and remembering like of like the days of the like childhood days when he took him to exactly like Nam might have been extremely frustrated with like not being able to like defeat like Sanjay's father and like Sangyeon is definitely back then it's definitely might have encouraging to be their revenge that they might have taken through like the experience like that they might have never been able to like grow out, especially Nam who might have never been able to grow out of it and like uh Ilna might have eventually lure like info into like to becoming like the winner of like 2015 Squid like Ilna might have trapped info as well into that way be and might have been anxious and that time info might have been badly and also really something for like his actual father as well. So like Ilna when he might have found out that like it's like Ilna that like info's like actual father like and there was like so that info like journey of like this game and everything like 20 million and everything like I'm like usually in my town only trick and brain was been to totally be involved with like the studio as like to run like the like the format and everything. It's definitely my friend and that might have been what might have happened. Definitely my friend might be that's the reason for like info. Even after like in that like info totally running would be like running like the studio would be on the afraid to like ensure that like the game keeps running. It's definitely and sun gonna stop and everything. It's definitely my personal temperature right now. So like, but never the temperature side like in like the Fox good game like I'm definitely protecting like Sun John to like still survive. It's like but like I'm looking like the Fox good game won't be reaching its like completion like I'm looking Sun John attempt to like destroy like the Fox good game like eventually resulting in like the like switch of Fox good game usually getting in like infrastructure and stuff. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. But like I'm looking like as far like the 25 good game, this game that will be taking place in like 2020 first year like. But like at that point in that skill game as well, I'm also in Sangram totally and bring this intent to like stop like the full game once and for all. And I'm also but like in that skill game, like Sangram will be that in the situation or like I'm also definitely by like season 3 by the time Sangram will be entering like 20 full game, like I'm also Sangram by then would be like totally getting blackmailed with like I'm also like import totally having just like men catch up like Sangram and like threatening to take Sangram's out of life and I'm also like maybe like info like even giving I'm also bring up for 22 Squid Game like I'm saying info be extended and race with like Sanjon like destruction of flexibility for Squid Games like this another that I'm saying that like I'm doing info for threatening Sanjon into like giving Sanjon other choice but to enter in like the 2024 Squid Games like the scenario that I'm looking by blackmailing Sanjon so like spend the life of like Sanjon daughters like the threat of taking the life Sanjon so it's like the scenario that I'm doing so like that way the bet for like that 2024 Squid Game would be for like if Sangyeon wins like the 2025 Squid win plays and actually plays and wins like the 2025 Squid Game like that like Jumbo would be definitely that like Info would definitely be putting an end to this like Squid Game and like would be like something like would be like along the lines like the bet that Info would be making and like in the, and it's like Sangyeon they would like not only Sangyeon will be like but like Sangyeon like daughter as well would be like so like if like Sangyeon wins like not only Info would be like stopping like the Squid Game but like also like Sangyeon's daughter at the really free would be along the lines of like a threat of like a bet that like I'm assuming like Info would be like making and like maybe Sangyeon into like possibly making Sangyeon enter into like the game like living the scenario that everything and I'm looking like in season three like of that Squid Game like I'm looking towards the very end I'm looking like the final Squid Game Squid Game would be between like Sangyeon would be like the only survivor at that point versus like Sanjon versus like the frontman Sanjon versus Info. Like would be like that final six studios in which like American Sanjon for the struggling Spain to like eventually defeating Info. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. And I'm doing in that studio I'm looking like maybe for like Info to totally get desperate. And I was like while playing that six studio like I'm doing Info's like childhood memories and of like making the Info like basically always losing like Sanjoni like the childhood and studio and everything like for that it was totally reminding getting reminded of like by playing that game in like the 2025 game but like I was like right and I was like that way like info getting desperate and info maybe even cheating in that final six game but like I'm just get like I'm just somehow managing to like defeat info and I'm just like info would be like I'm like the final scenario would be like I'm like info would be like losing and like like through the nature of that game like maybe like info totally losing and I'm like the loss of info would be like naturally caught in like info. That's like I'm looking like that would be along the lines of like the nature of like the sixth game in like 2025 2025 game would be just like the scenario that I'm looking and that would be how like info would be like dying and Sangyon that way at that point would be how like I'm looking like the Squid Games in that country would be like ending. So info step. That's like the scenario that I'm looking for the bring and not the question. Okay, so like, but we're not putting right now, but like Sanjon, like this is straight away being taken. According to like Sanjon will being taken to like the because stadium as well as like straight away right now, like jump to saying that basically plan B is in effect. Like basically, so like we are right now, but basically plan A, like the plan A and plan B. That like Sanjon as well as Jan Hometo strategies, like according to that, like I'm wondering plan A might have been to basically for them to like succeed in like basically like from that club itself, and like the from that club itself, where like the which like Sanjo had gotten like the skill game back invitation to like meet like the person running the skill game like the frontman at that point self for them to like actually be able to like succeed in like capturing like the person running the skill game of frontman like that might have been for them how to like be able to capture info like basically alive and all that like that might have been like what plan A might have been definitely not the same version. But like plan B might have been like the other scenario, the worst case scenario might have been like plan B, like for like another possibility like that they might have purchased and thought about between like Sangyeon and Janho might have been like the possibility of like basically their attempt to like capture like the frontman failing and basically instead like Sangyeon getting possibly captured and taken away into like the Squid Game Island during that meeting in that club. This might have been like the counter strategy for such a scenario might have definitely been plan B, definitely no surrender. So like this might just be like what like right now Jang Ho would be like telling Sangyong's team by saying that like plan B is in effect. This definitely might take prevention. So like the plan B would be like they would be all having their like boat ready, boat or like ship ready to like basically follow up like from that port while Sanjon will get taken to like William Island for them. Sanjon's entire team and Jumbo to like stealthily like follow after that. after that shift, and basically for them to like be able to like make it to like the Squid Game Island that way, and for them to be able to infiltrate into like Squid Game building and put an end to like to the Squid Game and capture like the front man and everyone and the VIPs and all of that would be like the plan B. Their plan B is definitely meant to frame the yet like I was still thinking about the frame for like definitely there to be a storm, and I was like in that storm, like maybe like luckily for like the Squid Game, for like the frontman as well as like the Squid Game workers, like I'm doing like the ship that will be taking Sangyeon won't be like capsizing, but like I'm looking like the ship in which like Sangyeon's team along with like Junho will be like through the Sangyeon's team like as they will be like following like Sangyeon like I'm like their ship like basically totally in the storm and like the huge waves and like the storm like possibly capturing like the scenario that I'm and also think about the premise that like by the time that they will be able to like get back on their feet and basically by the time they will be like make like Junho and his the Sangyeon's remaining thing and like will be able to like make their next move like I'm by then like the first game might have already began and basically in that first game itself like Sangyeon totally losing that like tracking location tracking phase of like Sangyeon's like the scenario that I'm referring that way like them all having the task be like basically without their tracking like possible like them still having to like basically like without any tracking device like them having to like find where exactly the civilian island would be for like the 2024 civilian would be for like the 2024 civilian and like the task that at that point like some point like Sanjay remaining team would be having is like the scenario that is sitting on the okay, so then definitely the preemption right now was like through the limousine sanction right now about to be taken to the Squid Game Island while Neol right now basically not entering any Squid Game when even while she had gotten the Squid Game card like so definitely the preemption that like Squid Game right now through the Squid Game card like Neol right now would be like entering like the 2024 Squid Game as like a Squid Game worker. That's definitely my preemption. So yeah, that like my preemption and like Sangyeon eventually in his like journey in like the 2024 million initially Sangyeon totally like getting Neon to Sangyeon's side is like even though Neon would be like a female but still Sangyeon like there being like a moment where like Sangyeon would be able to like get Sangyeon and the super like would be capturing Neon and still be capturing and stopping Neon is like the scenario that I'm looking. And I'm like it will be during that and Sangyeon may be planning on disguising as like a civilian worker at that point like the scenario that I'm referring to, like maybe it will be during that fight against like Neo, that I'm like Sangyeon and Neo will be like having their own moment of like the serious interaction where like I'm like maybe like somehow like I'm like that teamwork being formed between like Sangyeon and Neo like that point. Like the scenario that I'm and that will like Neo totally helping Sangyeon to basically stop and put an end to like the civilians and in exchange like Sangyeon would totally possibly offering Neon like Sangyeon's well, like the scenario that I've given, especially since like Neon would be like a city run of Neon would be only knowing that like Sangyeon is like the winner of the Great Into this game, and so like Sangyeon would be like extremely well placed. Like Neon would be like knowing what like definitely Sangyeon will be using all of that, like all of his wealth to like basically even get or I'm going to Sangyeon initially even driving in your and that way getting in yourself as like a studio work after like Sangyeon out in like Sangyeon's journey within like this studio to basically put an end to that to the studio and all that like the scenario even just possible multiple possible scenarios that end up correct and other things and definitely I was like Neol and Sangyeon regardless of Neol being like a studio worker and like Neol and Sangyeon like so eventually they'll be working together to put an end to that the studio like being the scenario that end up